and joining this Adobe user group for AEM. These are, customer-led groups that we're really hoping to kind of get your guys' feedback on and let Steve present on his case. So I'm going to hand it over to Steve and we'll get this ball rolling.
Great, thank you, Chase. Hi, everybody. Steve Cherneff here, solution consultant. I wanted to just turn my camera on briefly just to say hi, put a face to a name. But as you can see, I'm getting some weird sunlight coming through my windows, and in an attempt to save some bandwidth, I will turn off my camera to share my screen. But wanted to say hi with the camera on for a moment. But let me start off by sharing my screen. And hopefully you guys are all here for the AEM Headless session. If not, stick around anyways. Again, I'm Steve Cherneff, a solution consultant here at Adobe. I've been working on the AEM or Adobe Experience Manager solution, since it came to be here at Adobe, which I think we're going on close to 12 years now, I believe. And so the goal today is to give you a kind of a deep dive into the headless capabilities of AEM and kind of what's new over the last few years, and show you some of the capabilities, show you where you can get some of the documentation, resources, tutorial content, and then really kind of start the immersion into the AEM headless capabilities. So with that, let me show a couple slides here, and then we'll get into demo and such. So AEM Headless. So we're all sort of familiar with more traditional AEM, hopefully, where content authors come into the AEM interface and drag and drop new content and build out pages and build out the whole experience, so to speak, and deliver a fully rendered HTML experience into a browser. We're not talking about that today. What we're talking about is sort of more of what is referred to as the headless side of AEM, where a content author still can come in and create content and even potentially do more WYSIWYG, authoring of still dragging and dropping, but that content gets delivered as a headless piece of content or a XML or JSON representation of that content to a front-end technology that takes that content and renders it into an experience. So that's sort of what we're talking about, headless capabilities. And we'll show you how that works in AEM, both from a content author perspective as well as a developer who needs to take that content and use it within a front-end experience. Okay? So what we kind of now term AEM is not just a traditional CMS or a headless CMS. It's kind of both at the same time. We refer to that as an agile CMS. Some people use the word hybrid CMS, where we can do both headful or traditional content as well as headless content. So how do we do that in AEM? Excuse me. The key features or functions that we built into AEM that allow for this headless content authoring and delivery are these kind of four main points. First is content fragments. So a content fragment is a way for content authors to create structured pieces of content that are reusable, both as headless content delivered to front ends, as well as content that's reusable within a traditional website, meaning I can still drag and drop content fragments onto a fully rendered page. So we'll talk about how those work, how you can create the content fragment model, which is the sort of basis for the content fragment. As a non-developer, as an author, I can then create the content fragments from that model, and we'll show you how that works. The other piece is experience fragments. It's still a fragment of content similar to a content fragment, but these are more for unstructured types of content, where you still have the ability to drag and drop content on a screen. Today you can have an image and a piece of text. Tomorrow you could have a carousel and 3 images and 4 pieces of text. So it's very similar to page authoring in a more traditional sense, but this is delivered and used as a fragment, again, headlessly to a front end. How does the developer access all this content? Through GraphQL and content services. GraphQL is a fairly new API for AEM. It's been around for a year or so. And it is a more modern way of querying content and delivering that as a JSON payload. But we also have RESTful APIs, specifically content services. And we'll talk about both of those and how developers can utilize those APIs. Then finally, SPA editor. SPA editor is a way for authors still to get a in-context WYSIWYG authoring experience, but having that content delivered headlessly so that your front-end developers can still have a decoupled approach and access that content headlessly. So that's sort of the main areas that we'll go through, excuse me, today in a demo. And so let's go ahead and dive in. Okay. All right, so here we are. On the left, we have an AEM interface, the authoring interface. On the right, we have what is a representation of a headless sort of front end. So this is an application that was written in React.js by a front end developer, right? And as I kind of click through it here, you see there's weekend adventures. There's lists of different adventures that I can click on. And as I click into each adventure, I get a detail page of that. I also have, more deeper content articles where I can click on these articles and get, more rich content. So although this application was written in React, all the content that's being delivered is coming from AEM. So let's show you how that works. So if we take a look here at these adventures, right, surfing, social, rock climbing, etc., all the content for these adventures is coming from a content fragment, okay? So let's go ahead and show you this content fragment in action from an author's point of view. Content fragments are stored in the asset repository because they kind of act like an asset, meaning it's a reusable piece of content that I can use multiple places within an app or within a website or whatever the case may be. And I can edit that content centrally in one place, and then all the changes will flow out to all of the endpoints, similar to how you might edit an asset, a JPEG, for example, and how that shows up edited across all of your different sites. So here we are inside of the AEM demo assets folder. I've got a folder just for these adventures. And I've created a new folder to add a new adventure called Surf Camp in San Diego. Right now, the only thing in there is an image. But let's go ahead and create the content fragment. So an author can come in here and create the content fragment. They can choose between content fragment models. These are similar to how templates would work in a more traditional AEM, and we'll show you how to author these content fragment models in a moment. But as an author, I want to create a new article, and we'll call this, surf camping in San Diego. Create and open. All right. Oops, sorry, I made a mistake right off the bat. I chose article instead of adventure. Sorry about that. You can tell it's a live demo. Let's create this new one here. All right. Create content fragment. Adventure. I chose article. My bad. All right. Here's do surf camping in San Diego. Hit create and open. And as you can see, I'm presented here with a form, right? Structured content has specific fields and form elements that I must fill out as an author, right? So as an author, I would come in here and start to fill out the various pieces of data. I'll cut and paste some text here to save from typing. You can have pull down boxes. So this would be an overnight trip. Make it a 3-night trip. It'll be surfing, and we'll start to fill out some of these fields here. Call it an advanced trip. Costs $3,500. We also can then reference other pieces of content stored in AEM. So in this case, I can reference that image that I've stored. So I'll go under the English Ventures, and here's my surf camping in San Diego. There's my image that I will select and fill out various other pieces of text, right? So once I've created this, you'll notice that it gets stored inside of AEM's asset repository as if it was an asset. So here's this new surf camp in San Diego content fragment. And here's the image that is referenced. And now if I go back to my app, right, and we'll kind of refresh home and go back to adventures. Now, if I've done anything right and I click on surfing, we now have the surf camp in San Diego added to this under the surfing. If we click on it, here's the information I just filled out. And that's as easy as it is to add this content. So let's see what's going on, okay, behind the scenes, right? So if we take a look here at the app, and I can open up the network inspector, right? Take a look at what's coming through here from this application. So if I click on surfing, right, and click on Surf Camp in San Diego. Oh, sorry, let me do this. Go back. All right. So if I click on these endpoints, you can notice that what's coming through here is a GraphQL query. And you can see the query here, and I will show you this in a prettier view here in a moment. And you'll notice that what comes back in this case is a JSON response. In this case, a list of all the adventures that are in AEM, and return back information about that. So there's the Bali Surf Camp, here's the Brevon in Portland, which comes under social, and all the different pieces of content, right? And if I click into one of them, for example, Surf Camp in San Diego, I get another call that is getting the details of this specific adventure. So here you can see the adventure activity, the description, the itinerary, the price, all the data that I just entered into that content fragment. So we're using a query language here, an API called GraphQL. So GraphQL, for those who may not be familiar with it, is a sort of more modern query language for querying not data from a database, but it's more geared towards querying content. It came out of Facebook, who made it a public API. You can think about, a Facebook, your Facebook stream, and as you scroll more content about that you're interested in or about your Facebook community comes in. That's all running through a GraphQL queries that's returning that content to the Facebook app. So Facebook put all this energy into creating it, and they've now made that a public technology that a lot of content technologies and CMSs are now utilizing. So let me show you some of this capability for AEM author and developer. So inside of AEM, we now have this query tool called GraphQL that allows you to build queries and see responses. So immediately upon creating that content fragment model, which this is actually a good time to show you that. A content fragment model is created through a content fragment model editor that a administrator or IT or developer would create, but it still requires no code. So under the tools, administration tools under assets, You can see here we have a content fragment model area, and under my AEM demo assets, I have this adventure content fragment model that I can edit. So the way it works is it's a drag and drop model that you have a variety of different data types that you can drag and drop out. You can then select various properties for that field. So, if it's a text field, is it rendered as a single text field or multiple? What's the property name? What's any default values or restrictions on length? Is it a required field or not? Does it have validation, right? So all the things you would expect when you're creating a form, but this can be done, by, again, a non-developer, or if it is a developer, it's a no-code approach. And we have a variety of different data types, as well as the ability to reference other pieces of content, like the image, or other fragments itself. So you can have nested fragment models inside of other models to separate and create a hierarchical content model. And so a administrator, again, developer, creates this content fragment model, and immediately upon creating it, all of these field property names become queryable through GraphQL. So if we jump back into this GraphQL editor, I could start to type, and it is a self-describing language. Oops. What that means is that as I type, I could start to, type in various fields that are available within my query. So in this case, if I want a list of all the adventures, I can then start to grab all the specific items within those adventures, and then it can tell me all the properties within that content fragment model. So let's say I want to get the title, right? And then maybe I want to get, oops, sorry, fat fingered that one. Maybe I want to get the description. Maybe I want to get the, price, for example. So what's nice about GraphQL is you can query and return just the pieces of content you want. So it makes for a very efficient payload delivery. Instead of having to gather all of the content about a specific node or a specific model, I can just say, hey, I want the title, description, and price, right? And you can run these queries and get a look at the return and make sure it's what you want, right? So in this case, I've queried the title, the description, and notice the description is available in a variety of different formats. I can get HTML, Markdown, plain text, or JSON. So maybe in this case, I just want the HTML. So I can take a look at that. Okay. And so now these queries as a author are now available to be utilized by developers. So let's go ahead and take a look at the developer side of things and open up this React app and show you some of the code. Okay. I'll kind of shrink this down. So what we're looking at here is the code that your React or front-end developer would write. I'm showing it inside of VS Code. And really what we're using here is, this application is, again, running outside of AEM, decoupled from AEM. And just to kind of highlight that, I can come into this app and start changing some of the React code. In this case, maybe just some of the CSS elements. Maybe I'll change some of the colors to like a red. And notice, that happens. And this is, again, outside of AEM. AEM's not touching this code. So I have complete, independence and decoupled approach. But where we do utilize and access AEM here is in these queries. So I have a query.js component that is naming all of these GraphQL queries that, again, I can create and test inside of that AEM browser and then cut and paste into my code. So in this case, I'm looking for the adventure list. So I'm getting the path, the activity, the title, the image reference. And really what that is it's utilizing this call here that's getting all of these different activities with just the image. But then when I want the detail, I want to get all of the information out of there, including trip length and price and everything. So when I click on that, it's using this query here and rendering it out. Okay. So that's sort of the way this is being used inside of a React front end. Again, completely decoupled approach. The React app doesn't know, that it's AEM behind the scenes. It just knows it's calling some GraphQL queries and away it goes. Okay. That's for doing content fragments, right? But we talked earlier that, we also have this idea of experience fragments. So inside of this application, we have this magazine section where I can click on, let's say, Western Australia camping, and I get this article that has text, it has various layouting, it's got images inside of it, and it's sort of this article approach with text and graphics and such. That was created by, again, a AEM content author, but in an experience fragment versus a content fragment. So let's take a look at that real quick. Okay. So back in AEM, I'm going to go into my experience fragments, and I have the Western Australia fragment here I can take a look at and click on edit. Okay. And here you can see I have a more WYSIWYG type of an editor, the more standard page editor that you're used to seeing in AEM, where I can come in here and make changes to content, like for example, a trusty vehicle, a very trusty vehicle, and maybe I want to swap out images, and so maybe I want to search for my camping images. Whoops, I gotta spell it right. And find an image I like. Maybe I like this image. Drag it and drop. Whoops. Drag and drop it on. Maybe see some of these changes in a preview, and then when I let's change this one out to. Right. Fill out some metadata. There we go. And when I make these changes in a more graphical way, those still can be delivered headlessly to this application. So if I come back here and refresh and go back into my Western Australia, you'll see this new images, a very trusty vehicle, and that content is updated. And again, if you take a look though at what's actually happening here, we can pull up my network inspector again, go look at model calls. Whoops. This is calling, and I'll just refresh it so we can see that call here. So we'll go back to magazine and we'll click on Western Australia. So if we take a look at this Western Australia call, what we're actually calling is the Content Services API in AEM, which is not a GraphQL call because it's not structured content, but it is a call to our Content Services API that's going to call this Western Australia page and return all of the items that are in it. So we have a title, we have experience fragment, we have various pieces within there, and really a description as JSON about all the content that's in this article that can then be called by a front-end developer and rendered into the experience. So that's a little bit about experience fragments and a content services approach of querying for that content. But again, all of the content is authored in AEM, some through a content fragment as a form, some through Experience Fragment as more of a contextual editor, but both delivered as JSON-based payloads into the front-end app. Okay. So the last thing I want to kind of show you as far as headless features in AEM is what we call the SPA editor. Okay. So a SPA editor is the ability to edit your SPA, single page app, inside of AEM, but not as a fragment or a piece of content, but fully contextual in-app authoring. So let's show you how that works. So we'll go back into the AEM site editor. And open up the index page for this application. And we'll go full screen here just to make it a little bit nicer. Okay. So here's this application that we've been working with. If I hit preview, it's going to work just like the app did outside of AEM, meaning I can click on adventures, I can start to click through my content, right? But when I come to a page, we'll do the San Diego Surf article, right? I can now edit this content in a WYSIWYG way. So let me show you what I mean by that. So if I hit edit, right, I still have my editing controls. I can drag and drop new components in. Let's drag maybe a piece of, drag some new text in. No. And we'll type in, new surfing adventures, or whatever the case may be. I can, sorry, I hit the wrong button. Go back to that. There you go. We have new surfing adventures. I could even swap out, let's say, images. Let's say I got the new surfing image that I want to throw in there. Let's say I want to throw in this one. And so I'm authoring this in a very WYSIWYG way, in a similar way that I would if this was a traditional website, right? But really what's happening is that is being delivered again as a headless piece of content into the front end, and just kind of show that here. If I look at this app, you can see it's got the new surfing adventures in San Diego Surf. So the way that is happening is that we, in the SPA editor, what we do is we allow the front end author of the React app or developer of the React app denote certain areas of the app that they want to have editable within this new SPA editor, and map the front end code to a AEM component structure. So if I take a look back at my code here of this app, right? Let me take a look at, for example, this front end component, this teaser component, right? You'll notice that we have this import statement called import with mappable, and it maps this front end component, this React component, React editable component, back to this teaser component that is an AEM authoring component. So what that does is it takes the React app, loads it into AEM, and then when the AEM editor sees one of these components, these React components that's mapped to an AEM authoring component, it overlays that authoring control. So we're kind of rendering the SPA component or the SPA application and then overlaying our editor on the editable, the mapped components that the developer says, hey, I want this to be editable. And what that does is it turns on the editing experience, makes it appear that I'm editing the app itself, but really we're just editing the components and the content that's mapped into the component. And really the only thing that AEM is storing and editing is any of this component data, like the image or the text that I might put in, etc. So it gives the author more control and a more contextual experience, but still provides for a decoupled application development environment. Okay. So let's keep going here. Let me jump back into my slides for a second. So that's a little bit of the demo. One of the things I want to point out is, a lot of you may look at this as new capabilities in AEM, but we've actually been using this technology for quite some time, and Adobe kind of uses it ourselves to power the content that a lot of you may see on our different applications, our different websites, mobile apps. So all the Creative Cloud content that you see when you open up Photoshop, like you see on the right, and then when you go to the website and other places in emails. If you're a Creative Cloud user, you've probably seen all these pieces of content about learning and tutorials and new information about the application that's always changing and updates. All that is powered by AEM Headless content authoring and delivery. It's a huge project when you think about all the millions of users that have AEM, that have Creative Cloud. Again, in all of the websites and the apps, in all the startup screens, all that content's powered by AEM headlessly across 40 surfaces, right? 10 internal teams. You can imagine, the amount of marketing and product teams in the Creative Cloud side of things. That represents 20 terabytes of content delivered daily. And this is personalized content based on what you clicked on before, based on what products you own, based on other information. We target you to make sure you have personalized content. And in total, it's over 100 million API calls to AEM in a headless way per day. So extreme scale. So we're using this quite a bit. We do a lot of the sort of torture testing through this use case, and actually learn a lot about what we improved through our, doing it ourselves. So next time you open up one of the Creative Cloud tools, you'll be seeing AEM content delivered headlessly. So the next thing I want to talk about is sort of I'd say the newest piece of the AEM headless and developer story, which is Adobe App Builder. So App Builder, for those of you who have been following, Adobe, you may have heard of a project called Project Firefly, rather. This is the sort of new name, the non-beta name, and it's called App Builder. And really what it is a completely cloud-native, cloud-based, completely hosted way to develop and extend AEM and other solutions in the Experience Cloud. Again, with a serverless environment that allows you to create new projects in a dev console, run a CLI to create, compile, and load, run and edit that code, and deliver that as a Firefly application. Again, serverless environment, no resources really needed on your end. So, if you think about the way that AEM has been extended or customized in the past, we have some out-of-the-box solutions for launch and dynamic media and target, etc., and analytics that are in the product. There's also a third-party sort of exchange. If you go to the Adobe Exchange, there's various connectors and extensions. But now with App Builder, there's now an additional way to create your own custom extensions and customizations for AEM. So it's got a lot of things that are built into it. It's got a React-based UI framework we call Spectrum. If you've used any of the Adobe tools and Experience Cloud, etc. You'll be familiar with that look and feel. We base all of our own UI work on this React Spectrum. It's got the ability to publish and consume events. So we support webhook and journaling. And most of the Experience Cloud products, including AEM, have the ability to emit events that these app builder applications can react to, or pun. We have a variety of services to manage and run and optimize these applications, including a CLI, command line interface, and SDK that are available. And then the runtime, as I mentioned, is a serverless compute framework based on OpenWhisk, if anybody's familiar with that, that allows you to host your code without additional need to manage those environments. So it's a completely scalable hosted environment with a set of developer tools and IDE plugins for Visual Code and others to help in your deployment. We're not going to do a full demo of that today. I think maybe we can set up another one, or there are also resources online. But some of the principles, from 0 to hero in 15 minutes, create new apps, hello world apps, and other things in literally minutes. Familiar tools is based on Node, NPM, GitHub, VS Code, React, Jamstack, all the sort of technologies that are in play here. It's everything you need. We say batteries included, but removable. So we'll give you everything you need to go. But if you want to replace with your own technologies and plugins and whatnot, you can. Again, it's cloud native, no operations required. Open source, developer first, API first, and is already hooked into all the Adobe Experience Cloud solutions like Experience Manager, as well as Analytics Target and others. So with that, I will, kind of leave you with a couple slides here, and then I think we might have a few minutes left for Q&A at the end. But one of the things I like to talk about is AEM is it's not a, headless only. It's not a traditional only. It's sort of flexible, right? We have a variety of different customers across all different kinds of industries that are using AEM in multiple different patterns, where everything from AEM owns everything, like on the right, it owns all the content, it owns the display, it owns the experience, all the way to, further to the left, where only AEM is delivering content only in a headless manner, or vice versa. Maybe AEM controls the page, but content is coming in from an external source. Or maybe the reverse, the external source is running the page and AEM is putting content in. Or maybe some pages are AEM owned and some are owned by other technologies. AEM can fit into any of those deployment patterns and can evolve over time. So there's no need to say, oh, we want a headless solution, let's buy a headless only CMS. Or we need a traditional solution for one-off landing pages where we don't want to have developers involved. So AEM is that flexible tool, and it has been run in a flexible manner for years. We have a variety of different customers that are leveraging the headless capabilities. These are just a few of the more brand named sort of solutions out there that we've seen. So with that, as sort of I think that's my last slide. Let's go ahead and pause here. We got about 15 minutes left, I believe. Do I have that right? No, 10 minutes left? No, 15 minutes left. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, about 15.
Thanks. Where we will open it up for questions. If there are no questions, that's fine. Or while maybe people are thinking of it, I thought I would just pull up some of the resources that you can go to. If you just Google AEM Headless, you'll see first thing comes up is this headless tutorial. There's also an introduction. So if you go to our website, there's all sorts of information on Experience Manager Headless. Some of the slides that I showed. We have these developer journeys that you can take that have different steps along the way. We have a variety of information. Whoops, that's not the one link I wanted. A variety of sample code. Where is that one? There we go. So you can see the GraphQL API, Content Services API that we talked about, some of the examples that you saw, examples for iOS, Android, React, and a variety of different tutorials talking about the different technologies in play. So variety and a whole host of information on our website you can start to get information on and learn about these capabilities and hopefully start to build out some AEM headless applications on your own. So any questions? Oh, sorry, I was going to I was showing you a web page without sharing it. I'll just share it real quickly. Sorry, you're probably wondering, what is he talking about?
No problem.
So here you go. Here's the web page. AEM Headless tutorials, GraphQL API, Content Services APIs, examples in iOS, Android, and React, and a variety of tutorials. And so again, if you just Google query AEM Headless, you'll get a variety of different pieces of content from our website that will start you off on your journey. So yeah, sorry about that. So again, any last questions while we still have a few moments? No? Well, if not, then we'll give you all back 12 minutes of your day.
Perfect.
And I thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Steve. And yeah, this recording will be posted on the event page, as well as a follow-up email will go out. So thanks for all the time and everything. And great job presenting, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.